The Harry and Jeanette Weinberg Technology Plaza is unlike any building on the Mid-Pacific Institute campus. Equipped with a virtual studio, video conferencing capabilities, an area to study biotechnology, and a multimedia zone, the Technology Plaza offers students a place for hands-on learning and creative thinking. Mark Hines, Director of Technology, and Bob McIntosh, Associate Director of Technology, share how this building has shaped the learning happening on campus.
Well, there was a lot of conversations in the early days about, what are you, nuts? Where are the walls? Where are the desks? Where are the blank? I mean, there was so much old paradigm thinking in sort of the initial conversations, and trying to always back away from that and say, okay, no, we're not building for what we've done, we're building for where we want to be. I mean, Joe was always the leader in that. He kept saying, don't build old buildings new.
Right.
You know, innovate.
Well, it was always the belief that no matter how much training you put somebody through, how many things you expose them to, if you're going to constantly put people in the same environment, which was a 600 square foot classroom with sled desks, you were never going to change anybody's behavior.
Yeah.
If you were going to raise the expectation of what you wanted the adult to do, what you wanted the learners to do, you had to put them in a completely different environment.
Our conversation started back in 1998, 1999, really, right? In what the future of education should look like, how students learn.
The original design for the plaza, the Learning Plaza, as it looks right here, its original intention was to be a school within a school, that up to 150 students could come into the space for an entire day and spend the entire day with 4 or 5 facilitators and earn all of their Carnegie units within that space. Everything would be project-based. So the question became, what would that space have to look like, and what role would multimedia play in that? And that led to a lot of what we see. At the beginning, a lot of the conversations were how the kids were going to struggle with it, but we knew that the kids weren't going to struggle with it. It was the adults that were going to struggle with it. The kids were going to adapt fine.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, it was going to better match how they learn anyway. It was the adults that were going to have trouble with the seeming chaos that sort of ensues throughout the day.
Yeah.
But underneath that layer of chaos is a lot of planning and a lot of forethought by everybody that's not really visible unless you know what to look for.
Right. Well, I remember the day we opened, the kids came in, they took off their shoes, they put them on the rack, and they got to work. And a lot of staff members came in, looked and said, I'll be back when I'm ready. So there was the shift for the faculty is a much longer process. I think the students were ready to be in an environment that honored the way they learned.
Right.
I think we continually have to go back and engage the faculty in ways of using it, and I think we've come a long way in 6 years. But it's interesting, there's another aspect of this, and that's, I think for a lot of teachers professionally, it's the first time in their professional lives when they've used a space where there's 2 or 3 other colleagues that are available. And I think for some people initially there was that off-putting because they didn't want to be judged, or they were worried about other people being in their class. Right. Now we see an entirely different behavior when someone like a social studies teacher comes in and he sees a science teacher or a math teacher, they start to converse while the kids are engaged in project work, and they're finding links between the things they're doing. So now with multiple classes happening simultaneously, you see much more conversation about project design, curriculum, how did you get the kids to do this, why aren't my kids more that way? So I think there's a lot of hope that the structure in itself can change behaviors because people are talking more than they did when they go into the building. A typical day in our building, to an outside observer, is chaos initially. Yeah. I mean, it'd be like looking down on an anthill and thinking, how is that organized? And yet we know if you get down into any kind of system like that, it's very intricately woven, the communication, the way things are organized. The top floor here that we're seeing is the multimedia zone, so we're seeing here a media class. So here's a place that is scheduled most of the day with programmed classes. Students will look on their schedule and will say they have video filmmaking or they have yearbook, and it's in this space. So it's a place that usually, although students would love it if it was open more often, has classes programmed in it most of the day now. You see on the side here, this is the teacher office. It was very intentional for us to put the teacher office in this building and to create a lot of glass that would allow the teachers to see it. We knew for some of our staff this was going to be an easy building to live in, that they were already ready to be in a collaborative, very sharing, integrated environment. And for other folks, it was going to be for the first time that they'd ever really stepped outside of their classroom and saw themselves as a participant with other colleagues in conversation daily. And so we wanted to create a space that would allow them to see what was happening regularly in the building. Occasionally you need to have a private conversation, so we wanted to have areas that allowed a parent-teacher conference, you know, two colleagues that need to talk in private about an issue that might be professional, personal, whatever. And so we knew that the open teacher office would never be the forum for that. So we built in a couple of small 10 by 10 spaces. They're fully networked. They've got a phone. They've got furniture. They've got whiteboard. So you see math on here right now. So students will come in and work with teachers in these spaces. So we wanted a few of those. The teacher office was designed to both create a sense of intimacy when a teacher is sitting at their desk. So if I'm a teacher, when I'm sitting, I have the space in front of me where my professional work are, my documents, my texts, the resources I need. But I can very easily turn and have a conversation with a colleague. So the goal was to try to match the best of both giving people the space that was theirs, but also lots of opportunity for professional conversation. And so it's a very open office purposefully. We really wanted to make sure that we stressed that with folks that were coming in. You know, if we could go in here. Hi. Let's give you a view. So here's an example of the ways that you use a space when it's available. So right now, our seminar room is being used as a testing environment for IB tests that are happening. So you see it set up right now with lots of tables. In another week, this will be a blood drive. So it changes depending upon the mission of the week, and we have a calendar that we use to make sure that we don't overlap too much and have the opportunity to set up what's happening in them. And you can see this projection apparatus, so we can do multimedia projections in here, so that we can video conference from here, we can do all those kinds of things. The architect, John Hart Associates, did a beautiful job of capturing in this vaulted space what we really wanted to create, which was a sense of openness. We use that term a lot. We wanted students here to know what was happening there, to know what was happening down here. And so from almost any vantage point here, you can get a quick sense. Part of that, as adults, we want to have visibility. We don't want to have too many places that are hidden. We want to know what's going on. But more importantly, was to create awareness, peripheral learning opportunities for students as they were in the space. One of the things in this space that's really interesting is trying to define what's the classroom here. I mean, it could be just this area, it could be all of this, it could be group work, like we see 3 students on one machine here. So there's lots of different ways we configure these spaces depending upon what the teacher wants. Is it 1-to-1, is it 2-to-1? Are 3 students working on a podcast? Are the students individually doing a writing assignment online? So depending upon what they're doing, we can reassign spaces and fit 2 or 3 classes in here at the same time. There are times when you need to have a space where you can pull a group aside to be able to talk, to receive a short briefing, to share, to collaborate. We bring students in here where they can do a go around on a screen, do an analysis of a script, a storyboard, video conference with someone in another part of the country, for team meetings to happen, planning, design ideas. So here's a wonderful example of audio happening. Our Kumuhula Lanakila Kasapang is working with Lancy Wamoto, one of our building facilitators, recording for a performance that they're going to be doing later in next month with the Hula Halau on campus. And so we're using the facility to support that. So that's just an audio issue within this building. But this studio also works the green room next door where we do live and recorded broadcasts. Now what is this for?
Hi, this is for we're making educational movies.
For your health class?
Health class.
Okay, so this is health student. So this is the virtual studio. So we have a 180-degree wrap green screen. The technologies at the time in 2003, a lot of people thought we were kind of crazy to be putting in a green screen room in a high school. But now we know that tools as simple as iMovie, which ships with every Macintosh, have green screen capability in them. So our students are able to come in and film and create virtual backgrounds for 1-minute podcasts or entire movies that they're making. This zone we're in right now, which we call the technology zone, is where our exploration and technology class happens. When there's class in here, students are working in teams with a specific technology. They had about 2 weeks to understand the technology, research it, and apply it to solve an interesting problem, whether it's building an interactive game or designing and testing a structure or creating some media that they're going to showcase. And then all of their work is captured electronically, and they create a portfolio of their work that's available on the web, so they can share that with their students, with staff members, with their parents. It's a way for them to practice the art of capturing what they're learning and demonstrating it online. When we designed this space and people saw this area, they thought we were a little crazy. There was a lot of that actually in the early days. The notion of putting wet technology, aquaculture and biotechnology and hydroponics adjacent to electronic technology, computers and interfaces and robotics, just seemed kind of crazy. And yet for us, we knew that these were all technologies we wanted to make sure our students saw the weaving together. I mean, we use electronic equipment to capture. This is a beautiful example of a hydroponics setup where the students are looking at LED lights versus fluorescent lights as different ways of looking at how plant growth can happen. The wattage, they do the mathematics of it, they understand the way the nutrients work. So no matter how we work with the biotech area, we know that there's a layer of electronic technology that plays on top of this. So the students have to work with that, and it provides us a place where students can really expand their thinking about plants and cultures and tissues and small fish and little cells and big organisms all at the same time.
Every time we have visitors, I hope that one of the things that I hope happens after they leave us is that they've got that curiosity to look into it further, to maybe reconnect with what it is we know about learning today and the way kids learn. So I hope that everybody that comes and sees this space at least leaves with that one question in their mind: how can this work for us?